There is nobody like Anthony Bourdain. He made being a cook cool in a way that when he went into the profession, it was something that lowlifes and criminals who couldn't get another job did. And he made it this incredible, noble pursuit to go and work on the line and serve people and do this day after day. And sometimes to the detriment of everything else in your life, he made it a profession in a different kind of way than it ever had been as a cook. And then as a journalist, the lens that he saw through was food, but you see he had conversations with world leaders and people who work in fields and artists and luminaries from around the world, and he brought them all together around the table and used that as a way to deeply connect in a way that really hadn't been done before, and not done with such care and respect and love of the cultures that he explored. He made the world bigger and smaller at the same place, at the same time. And the loss of him is going to reverberate for a very, very long time. We met when we had a fight on Twitter. He wrote something I didn't like. I wrote something back that he didn't like. He called me out on Twitter. We're going at it, and I got a call from CNN PR, where I worked at the time. I didn't know that he was going to be coming to CNN, and they said, "You must stop now." And we have a bunch of mutual friends, or we did, and they reached out to both of us and said, "You don't know it yet, but you're on the same side." So a few months after that, he was doing a red carpet event. It was a benefit, and I had to interview him on the red carpet. And he leaned in and gave me a hug and said, "We're going to be friends." And he was fantastic. He was always there if you needed a gut check on something, or he would happily weigh in with his opinion on other things. But he was a good human being. So I've been a food and drinks editor for over a decade, and I've also been pretty open about my struggles with depression, anxiety, and a panic disorder. So what happened from that was that I would be in the middle of an interview, we'd take a break, and the chef I was interviewing would say, like, "Hey, can I talk to you for a second?" And they would either talk about somebody in their kitchen or what they were going through. And it started to happen more often than not. And I realized there was really something going on. And there were a couple of high-profile deaths in the food world. People don't understand, they don't know how often people die in the food world because people don't talk about it. And January 1st, 2016, I threw up a website that had resources for mental health care, and especially geared toward the restaurant industry, and just started sharing people's stories. And I put up a survey to ask people in the industry, what have you been dealing with? Do you talk about it openly at work? What kind of resources do you have? One of the primary responses I got from the survey was that people weren't talking about this in the kitchen because they were afraid of being thought of as weak or crazy. If people aren't talking about it, they can't deal with it, and they're afraid of these awkward conversations. But I keep telling people, you might have to deal with your line cook crying. That's really better than going to their funeral. And I'm so sorry to say it as bluntly as that, but that is what happens. Everybody's suffering next to each other in silence. Kitchens draw people who maybe don't fit into a 9-to-5 desk job or some sort of traditional form of employment, and it really suits them. There's a tremendous camaraderie in a kitchen. You know exactly your role, you know what you're supposed to do. And so people who maybe have a predilection toward, mental illness or addiction or something, find their place in there. They find people don't judge you. They judge, can you do the work? Okay, you're one of us, you keep the line going. So it draws maybe a lot of people who, have these issues to begin with, but then it can be exacerbated because it's an incredibly high stress job. It's physically demanding. It has incredibly strange hours where you get off late and the more reasonable people in your life are asleep, and it's easy to think like, oh, I'll go out and have a drink, I'll do a shot, I'll do something else dumb, and it gets exacerbated. And especially if people aren't talking about this, about the damage that they're feeling from it, because they don't want to be thought of as weak. They want to be part of that pirate ship rowing it along. What happens is that we just lose people, or their bodies break, their spirit breaks, they leave the industry. I want people who suffer from mental illness to know that they are not alone and they should not be ashamed. And I urge people to check in on their friends and please let them know, ask how they are. And if the answer isn't, I'm fine, let them know that it's okay to tell you the real answer. This is the only way we're all going to get through.